Today we're going to paint an orc using only 6 colours. There's the finished product. Hopefully you think he's good enough to watch the rest of this video. Okay, so those are the 6 colours I'm going to use. And the reason why we're using a limited palette is partly because maybe if you're a beginner you only have a limited number of colours. But also I think it's a fun way to paint. I actually prefer painting this way than painting with washes. So I'm using a wet palette and I'm mixing colours up on the palette, and I'll mix up more paint than I need in case I need to do a touch-up, but also because I'm initially mixing the mid-tone and then I'm going to mix the shadows and the highlights out of that mid-tone by adding colours to lighten and darken it. So here I'm mixing red with black to build up a nice sort of deep chocolatey brown, and I'll put a little bit of white in it just to take the edge off it as well. Wet palettes are really cool for painting. You should definitely check that out. Find a video or find a page that shows you how to make them. They're not expensive, they're not difficult to make. One thing that's kind of weird about this model is for some reason I decided to start priming my models in brown. And I really like the effect it gives me. I guess I'm kind of painting a lot of models that look kind of quite dark and naturalistic at the moment. So now I'm mixing up a shade of kind of dark grey for the boots, and I'm using blue and black mixed together. I'm not a huge fan of this particular shade of blue actually. A brighter blue would give you more flexibility. So I'm mixing up yellow and black to make a kind of light leathery brown, which is going to be the colour for the guy's jerkin. When you're working with just a limited set of colours like this, you're going to be able to make a wide variation of kind of muted, earthy, natural colours, the kind of things that medieval people would wear, or orcs. You know, obviously your palette's kind of limited. Okay, so here I'm mixing up a shadow colour for the trousers. I just put a bit more black into the red brown. I've thinned it out very thin. You see how thin that paint is, and I'm just going in and putting in the cracks. So it's not a wash. It's more selective than a wash. It's very thin paint, so it's going to dry fast. If you don't get enough the first time, go back and do it, build it up in layers. Now I'm doing the same thing for the highlights. I put some white into the red mix, thinned it down, and now I'm applying it to where I think the highlights should go on his pants. Now we're doing the orc flesh. I'm mixing blue and yellow together to make green. And again, we're probably a bit handicapped by that blue because that blue's not very saturated. You know, if it was a richer blue, we'd be able to get a more interesting range of colours. So I'm just mixing those together, mixing up enough to do the whole job. I think I put a little bit of black in this to darken it down as well, because I think I decided it was a little bit too light to start with. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to put that all over the flesh, just like I did for the rest of the model. Can't stress this enough, but use a lot of water in your paint. Keep your paint thin. This paint dries fast, and once it's dry, it's set rock solid. You can paint right over it immediately. So if the paint's not fully covering in one coat, it's very quick and easy to go back and add a second coat. You get a better result than putting on thick paint. Thick paint's going to clog the detail, and it's just not going to look as good. Alright, so now I've mixed up, I skipped a step. I did the shadows already, now I'm doing the highlights. So I put some more yellow into that paint, and I'm going to go in and start, again, hitting the areas where I think the light would be hitting, that are going to illuminate it, and also areas that I think would be taut. You know, areas that are tight are going to tend to look brighter than areas that are loose and in shadow. I don't know if that's any basis in reality, but it seems to be what works for these tiny models. When you're painting like this, you want the paint to be thin enough that it leaves the brush easily. So you see how thin that is? Very thin. It's coming off the brush easily, but I don't have much paint on the brush because I don't want it to come off and flood. It's not a wash. We're not trying to do a wash here. We're just trying to hit the high points and just leave a very thin layer of the highlight color. And then we go back and we can do exactly the same color again and apply 3 or 4 layers. And each time we're leaving a little bit more pigment behind, so the highlight becomes lighter and brighter. So here we're hitting his muscles on his shoulders, and doing a bit more on his face. Face is the focal point of the model. I mean, when I'm picking models, I'm looking for ones with fun faces. Alright, so I'm painting the sword. I'm just giving it a coat of black because I'm about to start with metallics, so giving it either a black or a very dark grey or a dark brown is a good starting place for metallics. They're going to look much brighter over a dark colour than a light colour. And one of the tricks with metallics is to keep the contrast high. Alright, so when you go to get a metallic paint, get the brightest silver you can get. Most of the other silvers, like bolt gun metal, those kind of lead belcher, you can pretty much make those just by putting black into silver and mixing them together. Here I put some red in as well, so I've got a kind of interesting I'm trying to make it look like this metal's, you know, not very clean and maybe a little bit corroded. It maybe came out a bit pinkish. If you look at the weapon in the final what the final model looks like, I actually went back and put a bunch of highlights and just kind of like painted on some dirt and weathering details to try and make it look like a real piece of metal and not just something I've been painted. So there I'm going in and hitting it with highlights with pure silver and just trying to hit the edge of the weapon to try and keeping the contrast high, right? We're not looking for you're not looking for subtlety with metal. You want the contrast to be high. All right. What are we doing now? I'm painting the gun. So with the gun, I painted the gun black, and then I basically just went around and edge highlighted the whole thing with a lighter shade of grey, trying to give it the sense that it's you know, it's made out of blued steel. It's got a that kind of look to it. Now I'm doing the teeth. So to make the ivory for the teeth, I just mixed white and yellow with a tiny bit of red to take the edge off it. I'm just going to go in and hit them with the edge of the brush. Thin paint, not too much paint on the brush, so the paint can come off the brush. Okay, so there he is. That's the finished model. Hopefully you like the look of that, and that shows you that you can paint something with, you know, $15 worth of paint rather than needing $100 worth of paint before you can even start. So hope you liked it. See you in the next video. Bye bye.